This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for January 30th, 2025. This is Season 14, Episode number 39, and Episode number 478 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Hello, everyone. I am Bob Howard. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a great show for you. I might be biased, but one of my favorite people on the Binghamton Black Bears will be on the show in just a little bit. He is Nolan Egbert, and it's just a great pleasure to just talk to him. His passion, his love for certain things like music and hockey and even broadcasting for that matter, just kind of comes through, and it's a great time. So I very much enjoy our chats together, and I'm pretty sure you guys are going to enjoy this. Now, we'll have him also on Sunday for 6 more questions, and he's the first guy to answer 6 more questions for the second time, which is pretty cool. So you'll have to wait until Sunday with the weekend wrap-up show to hear all about that, so which is pretty cool. There's a couple things here in my monologue that I kind of wanted to talk about that I've been kind of reading online through the Facebook groups, the fan groups, and I love that you guys are all talking about certain things and just kind of keeping the conversation going. The excitement that Binghamton fans have for their team is amazing. But I wanted to talk about Tyson Kirkby. Okay, so by the time you guys hear this, or relatively soon after you guys hear this, you're going to find out that Tyson Kirkby came back to the Binghamton Black Bears instead of going to the Worcester Rattlers in the ECHL. And I wanted to talk about a couple things that were kind of like in question about maybe Tyson being up in the ECHL for a long, extended time. One of the things is about captainship, right? What do? You got to put a C on somebody. You got to have a C. You got to have a captain picked. Somebody has to be wearing the C, right? And realistically, what it comes down to is the people who decide that isn't the fans, isn't really even the players. It is the coach. The coach makes the decision whether or not he needs to take a C and put it onto somebody, or remove a C from somebody, or in the case of Tyson being up in the ECHL, do I need to do that? Or have I built up a leadership group on this team that can carry the load while Tyson is away? And the answer is realistically the latter. The Black Bears have built up a leadership group that they haven't needed to replace Tyson or put a C on somebody else. It's really honestly that I'm pretty sure that Coach Sherwood hasn't even made a single thought about. And I think the fans talking about it, just made me, say, listen, I think I need to talk about this a little bit. Jesse Anderson has been, and I've basically said to all of you guys here on the Power Play Post Show, I think I've said it to Brant, I feel like Jesse is almost like a third arm for Brant Sherwood. The two of them are such in lockstep together about the way they think and the way they react, the way they want the hockey team to play, that I just really think that Jesse Anderson is a guy that can stand up or stand up and help lead the team whenever Tyson's not there. I mean, I'm going to say this. This is Tyson's team. As a captain, this is his team. But also, this is a team. And we talk a little bit about this with Eggy in the first part of the interview that you guys will hear in just a little bit. But this team is really a team first, right? Yes, you have guys with the letters on their sweaters. You have A's and you have a C on Tyson Kirkby. But what it really comes down to is that that's one of the reasons why Tyson's coming back. This is his team. This is He's a part of this team. He's a part of this experience. There were other factors that are obviously a part of why he would stay in the ECHL or not stay in the ECHL, and it's not for me to talk about those situations. But what I can tell you is that he wants to be here, and that's okay. He wants to also play in the ECHL, and he might actually have that chance next season, but he wants to finish something that he started here, and that's okay. And I want people to understand that if you see that he's decided to come back and he's going to be playing against the Columbus River Dragons this weekend, that was Tyson's decision, was nobody else's. Brant Sherwood did not, tell him what to do. Andreas didn't tell him what to do. And nobody in the ECHL told him what to do. This was Tyson's decision. And it's a decision that is for him, not for anybody else, not even for us, the fans. It is really Tyson's decision. And you have to respect whatever decision he was going to make. But at the same time, he's also the captain of this team. He's part of the leadership group of this team. And he feels like there is a responsibility that he has to himself and to this team. And it's okay. And so there was never a thought in Brant Sherwood's head, I have to take the C and give it to somebody else, like Ando or Lieutenant Dan, or anybody like that. No, that wasn't necessary. The team stepped up. Dan Weber ran the warm-ups during the games while Tyson was away. Okay, he probably helped run practice a little bit. So did Ando and Kyle Steffen and guys like that. The guys who have been around for a while, they could certainly do that. So absolutely no need to change the C from one person to another. And honestly, it doesn't really happen anywhere else unless a guy is not coming back at all, ever. Right. And, being that this is the single A hockey and that this is, the lowest level of professional hockey, single A, right? Because there's double A, triple A, and then, of course, there's the NHL. There's no saying that, he's up there for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. He's going to come back down, right? And they already have a leadership group in place that they don't need to go and replace Tyson. And he's really kind of irreplaceable in a sense. So I wanted to bring that up. I wanted to talk about that. Tyson will be back. You guys are going to hear about this sometime on Thursday. I'm sure the transaction wire will come over, and you will see that he's been activated. If it's not done Wednesday night as I'm recording this, or Thursday morning, or in the middle of the night, it's going to happen. And it's a good thing. And honestly, coming into the games against Columbus, I'm excited to see what Tyson Kirkby and this team, and he's been here practicing. He practiced Wednesday with the team, and he'll practice Thursday with the team. And he'll be in the pregame warm-ups and everything on Friday, or the game skate that they do. So he'll be ready, and he'll be here. And I'm excited to see what he and this team are going to do against the Columbus River Dragons. It's going to be a fun 2 games, and this is a testing. This is like you circle these games on the schedule and go, okay, I can't wait to see us play against them, or they're probably doing the same thing. Think about it for Columbus's point, right? This is the team with the most points, 83 points in the league, and you're going to come into their barn and see how you set up, right? If the games sell well and there's close to 4,000 fans at both games, it's going to be a great atmosphere, and this is going to be good. So let's get into this. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for the Power Play Post Show. Check out BinghamtonHockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And again, on this edition of the Power Play Post Show, we have Binghamton netminder, our good friend, Nolan Egbert. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit more with Tyson Kirkby. Tyson was waived by the Reading Royals, but then was picked up on waivers by the Worcester Railers Hockey Club. Now, does he come back to Binghamton or does he go to Worcester? That was a decision that Tyson had to make, and obviously we know now that Tyson has decided to come back to Binghamton. Now, why would he come back to Binghamton and not stay in the ECHL? And again, for me, the reason to go up to the ECHL and be there is to become part of the PHPA, which is the Professional Hockey Players Association Players Union. So that's important. But why would he come back to Binghamton? Well, he's probably making a little bit more money here in Binghamton than he would in ECHL. ECHL, I believe the minimum weekly salary or the maximum weekly salary a player can make is about $600. And, there are certain players in the Fed that make probably a little bit more than that to be here. So there could be a money factor. I don't know. I don't know what Tyson makes. I have not been privy to the contracts for the Binghamton Black Bears, so I can only surmise that there could be players such there. He also has a pretty good digs here in Binghamton for him to stay in, right? So there's some benefits there, right? There's also the ability to go play in the ECHL next year. Remember, Tyson's not an old man. He's still in his heyday of playing, and I think he's only gotten better the last 4 years every single year, okay? So why should he stay in the ECHL? Well, after 60 days in the ECHL or under an ECHL contract for a combination of 60 days, you get to join the PHPA, the Professional Hockey Players Association. And what is that? The PHPA is a certified U.S. National Labor Association's Players Union, bargaining representative for over 1,800 players across 60 teams through the American Hockey League in the ECHL. Further, the PHPA continues to serve 10,000 former PHPA members through its alumni network. And that's the network that you want to be a part of. Why? Because if you're up there for 60 days in the AHL or the ECHL, you get to join this union. And this union provides things for you realistically for the rest of your life. It's a pretty cool thing to be a part of. It's something that the FPHL doesn't have. The FPHL doesn't have, the players that are part of the FPHL or the SPHL don't have this. They're not a part of the PHPA. I think in due time, it's a very possibility that the PHPA could overlap into single A hockey. The reason why is because I think just the players and the capability of the players is just getting better. And we're seeing more players go from the Fed up to the ECHL. And I just think that with a few more years of good, hard work, this is going to be an important thing. So there are pros and cons to coming back to Binghamton. And there's pros and cons to being up in the ECHL for Tyson Kirkby. But this was a decision all for him, not for anybody else. Fans want him here in Binghamton. Well, also his family and he himself probably want to do the best thing that's for him. And right now, he decided to come back to Binghamton. But if he stayed up in the ECHL and he played there for a while, he would have been able to become part of the PHPA, which he still potentially has the ability to do in his future playing career. So we'll see how that goes for Tyson. So, but it sparked a lot of conversation, right, in the fan groups, and I wanted to bring that up. Listen, this is all about Tyson. This is all about his decision and what he does. And Brant Sherwood has created such a great leadership group here in Binghamton that there was never a question about the captaincy or anything like that. And let's be honest, the last 2 weeks, they still won 6 games and got 18 points, right? So the Black Bears are absolutely doing exactly what they need to do, overcoming adversities no matter what they are, from the captain being gone to the captain coming back or suspensions or whatever it might be. So they're doing good. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Columbus River Dragons. This weekend, they come in for 2 games on Friday night and Saturday night. This is the first 2 and only games the Black Bears and the River Dragons will play this season. They were supposed to play a third, but that third one was moved around because the River Dragons honestly didn't want to travel all the way up to New York for one game. And I don't blame them, honestly. The Black Bears and the River Dragons have played each other 8 times in the previous seasons, and the Black Bears are 4-3-1 against the River Dragons. Now, the Black Bears did not play the River Dragons last season, so it has been since March 4th of 2023 since their last matchup. In that game, the Black Bears won in overtime 4-3 in Columbus, Georgia. And yes, Coach Sherwood was the coach at the time. Also in that game, Austin Thompson, who is still on our team, scored 2 goals. Okay, the Black Bears had ended a 5-game losing streak when winning this game, where as the team now, the Black Bears are on an 8-game winning streak. This is a much different Brent Sherwood Black Bears team today versus 2 years ago when they played the River Dragons last. So I want to say that this is going to be a better played, better skill game between these two teams for these 2 games. In March of 2023, the Black Bears were finding their way. January of 2025, the Black Bears know who they are and what kind of team they are. So again, 2 years ago with Brant Sherwood leading this team, they were still trying to find their way. They were trying to make changes to the organization, build a culture of winning. They're there now. So that's going to be the difference that the River Dragons are going to see. They're not going to see a team that is working through things. They're going to see a team that just works through things. So very important. The River Dragons are 3rd in the Continental Division with an 18-6-4 with 55 points and a .655 winning percentage. So basically they've played about 28 games right now. The Black Bears are 1st in the Empire Division with a 29-4-1 with 83 points and an .814 winning percentage. Nobody is even close to them right now. And I think when you look at the numbers, Athens could get close to the Black Bears' winning record, but the Black Bears only have 4 regulation losses, and I believe the Athens Rock Lobsters already have 6. So they've played like 25 games or 26 games, I think, the Rock Lobsters has. And they're like 4th or 5th in the division because they haven't played a lot of games yet. There's still some games that had to be rescheduled in the beginning of the season and the beginning of their home stretch that they didn't even get to do the first weekend. So there's still some work for the Athens Rock Lobsters to do, but the Black Bears far above everybody when it comes to their winning record. The River Dragons are led by 3 players. Kyle Moore has 4 goals, 22 assists, and 26 points. Moore has 1 power play goal and a game-winning goal. Chatwin Blacksmith, who played in Watertown, all the Binghamton fans, you know him, for 15 games this season and 2 with the River Dragons so far, has 11 goals, 12 assists for 23 points. I believe he has 3 points with the River Dragons, so he's been productive in the first 2 games that he's been with them. But most of those points are with the Wolves and their high-powered offense when they had it at the beginning of the season. Now, Ryan Hunter has 11 goals and 11 assists. Very consistent. He plays a little bit like Austin Thompson does. He's got 22 points and has been a standout rookie for the River Dragons through 19 games he has played. The River Dragons have 2 solid net minders. Sammy Bernard has 11 wins, 3 losses, 2 overtime losses, a 2.13 goals against average, and a .928 save percentage with 3 shutouts. Matt Petizian has 5 wins, 1 loss, a 1.83 goals against average, and a .944 save percentage and 1 shutout. Now, if you look at those save percentages for both of those guys, very, very good. They do not let a lot of goals in. They have good defensive schemes, and their team defense, it plays very well in front of their netminders, and their netminders are very skilled. We've seen Sammy Bernard before in the last couple years, so this is a team that knows Sammy Bernard. Okay, special teams. Binghamton on the power play is ranked 3rd with 44 power play goals, which is number 1 in the league. They are at a 24% conversion rate, but again, ranked 3rd. Now, the penalty kill for the Black Bears, ranked 3rd as well. They've given up 23 power play goals against, 86%. Now, this past weekend, they only scored 1 power play goal, but they only gave up 1 power play goal against Mississippi. We'll see how that goes with Columbus. Now, Columbus, they don't score a lot of power play goals. They're ranked 8th in the league, which is the bottom half of the league with 21 power play goals at 21%. But they also haven't had that many opportunities as well. Penalty kill, they are ranked 5th with 16 power play goals against an 85% kill rate, which is very similar to the Black Bears kill rate of 86%. All right, lastly, let's talk about someone everyone should remember, as Justin Samaro plays with the River Dragons. He was picked up by the Blue Ridge Bobcats during the expansion draft and then traded to the River Dragons, where he has played 25 games, scored 8 goals and 7 assists for 15 points. He was a member of the Commissioner Cup's championship team in Binghamton last season, scoring 6 goals and 14 assists in the regular season, and had a goal and assist in the playoffs. He knows the Black Bears systems and will likely be heard in the video room for the River Dragons this week as they prepare. So I'm sure that their head coach will kind of get into the ear of Justin to really kind of talk to him about what the Black Bears do well. And, that's an advantage that they're going to want to take care of or take advantage of, which you kind of can't blame them in that matter. You have to kind of look at every little thing and get input wherever you can. So Justin Samaro should be up here with the River Dragons, and we should see that. Black Bears will have Tyson Kirkby back. So I think it's going to be 2 very fun games, exciting games to watch. And I hope that whatever weather is on Friday does not really play too much of an impact on the game itself as well. All right, so let's get to Nolan Egbert and get him here and talk to him. He loves being on the Power Play Post Show, and it's always good to have him. I did talk to him. I did not bring this up during the interview, and I really should have. I really wish I would have. But he really very much enjoyed doing the color game, or doing the game with Brooks Hill and doing color. And I think that if there was ever a time when he could do it again, he probably would. So with that all being said, let's get Nolan right here on the show, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Hi, this is Don Biggs from the 92-93 Binghamton Rangers.
Hi, this is Brandon Buchinski.
This is Grady Wittenberg, the voice of the Binghamton Senators, and you're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. He is one of my favorite humans in the world. I'll be honest about that. And I asked him literally 2 days ago, hey, would you come back on? He said absolutely. He comes to us from the Binghamton Black Bears. He is one of their netminders, one of 2 netminders for the Binghamton Black Bears. He is the Eggman himself. He is Nolan Egbert. Eggy, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And again, like I said, you are one of my favorite humans on the earth right now.
Well, I'm happy to be back, Bobby, and I'm extremely flattered, so thank you.
The season's been pretty good. I got to admit, 29-4-1. Did you think that we'd be 33, 34, 35 games into the season and you guys would have a record like this?
I think it's bold to say, but yes, absolutely. I think there were some, as good as we were last year, there were some teething problems we had to go through, figure out chemistry. But going into this season, we knew we were as a tight-knit group as possible, going in with the same core again and all knowing each other. Really no parts that we felt were missing this time around. Not to say that we don't miss the guys who were either claimed or walked on to another path with another team, but we were extremely confident. We thought maybe more so than we deserved to be, but we've proved ourselves right so far, and we hope to keep that going.
No, absolutely. And you guys have now entered into the 8-game winning streaks twice now. You had an 8-game winning streak, you lost a game, and now you've won 8 games again. That's 16 out of the last 17. Have you guys forgotten how it feels or looks like to lose a game?
I don't think anyone ever forgets how it feels to lose a game. I think that's the biggest motivator to not lose the games. In fact, I think it does matter to have a distinction between a love for winning and a hate for losing. And I think this team really despises losing more than anything else, which I think is the biggest factor where we're at. As cliche as it may sound, it is true.
So I want to ask you, the last 2 weeks you've played on Saturday night, won both of those games, one against Watertown, one against Mississippi. Watertown has some very dynamic players that can throw a lot of shots on net. And then Mississippi, I don't want to drag the team into the dumper any further than they already are in the standings and how they're playing. But there is a contrast between a netminder playing against a team like Watertown where they can throw a lot of pucks at you versus Mississippi who does not necessarily. Is it difficult for you to play against a team like Mississippi where they may not get a lot of pucks thrown at you? Because there is a healthy balance where you need to see a certain amount to stay sharp, correct?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It was... I will say one thing, though. Mississippi actually put on an additional shot on the score counter that Watertown did not. So I was, I did feel engaged in Mississippi. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. But to the point of your question, though, there is absolutely too few shots you could have in a game. It's something that it becomes a mental battle more than anything else. It's why a lot of detractors of Marty Brodeur say he doesn't belong in the conversation of best goaltender of all time. But there's something to be said for a goaltender who could only face 20 shots a night and still be so mentally engaged that he doesn't seem fazed by it or doesn't let up a soft goal because he's not fully mentally in the zone the same way you'd be if you're facing 40 shots. It's a skill in itself, and I think that's something I've had to really adjust to since coming to the Black Bears. I've been used to playing for teams that would allow upwards of 35 shots a game, and it's very easy to keep yourself in a role, to keep yourself in the zone, to be moving with the game and the flow like that if you don't get a chance to lose your mental side of things. So it's I think that's something I've improved on in the past year and a half.
And you kind of had to, obviously. I do want to ask you, down in Mississippi, it's a big arena, Mississippi Coast Coliseum. I believe seats like 8,000, 9,000 fans. But it seemed like the benches where you guys were very small and tightly packed. Does it almost? I mean, I know that when you're the backup in Binghamton, you're over in the corner. You have your own little space and nice little chair, and there's a couple people around you, but not too bad. But it felt really tight. Was it tight on that bench?
It was a bit. The way the doors were set up, I wasn't trying to operate them or anything like that. I just figured it would be best to stay out of the way of guys hopping the bench or doing anything of that sort of nature. So it was wasn't like I was in the way or we were really on top of each other too much. I enjoy being on the bench with the team. It makes you feel a bit more involved, even if you're not actually in the net itself. The role of backup goaltender is in a strange twilight between dressed and scratched, where it's not the same, but at the same time, you do have to maintain a level of readiness just in case the worst should fall upon the goaltender who is in the net. But it's funny when you're on the in the corner in Binghamton. Yeah, I like to say no man's an island except the goaltender, but I don't think that anyone's as isolated as the backup goaltender in an arena where they're not on the bench.
The competition between you and CMAC, is it? I mean, because every time I've talked to you, CMAC or Sam Levecchi, you guys have all said we're great friends. There's competition on the ice, but everything's good off the ice. And I'm not trying to stir up anything. I'm just kind of curious how, when you're such good friends with your goaltending partner, do you find the way to be so competitive that it does make it difficult sometimes for, Brant Sherwood to decide who to put into net? I mean, because at one point this year, Eggy, I don't know if you remember this, you both were coming off of shutouts, right? And then the next game, Brant has to make a decision. Do I put in Eggy, who just had a shutout, or do I go back to CMAC, who 2 games ago had a shutout? The competition factor between the two of you, is it real, or is it just you guys both come in, work really super, super hard, and then whatever Brant decides, you guys go with?
I think it's probably more of the latter, but there is that unspoken competitiveness between us. There's whether it be in practice, we play a mini game, we don't need to say anything, but we lock eyes and we know one of us has to win that mini game.
Right.
And I'll say CMAC got the best of me, I think, for a solid month straight, and I was losing my mind over it. I think.
So you were thinking about that. So you did at one point go, okay, I keep losing these little mini games, and it was kind of getting to you because you have a competitive drive. I mean, some people think that you're the nicest guy in the world, and my wife is the same way. She's super, super nice, and then she says, oh, I'm not competitive. But sometimes you can see it inside of her still, too.
Oh, I think every hockey player has an alter ego they step into the moment they go on the ice. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to function in society. If not, I mean, I've talked to some teammates, and they'll say something along the lines of, like, why do you hate me, or something like that, and I'll get off and be like, what are you talking about? Well, I saw you after that play, and you had the angriest eyes I've ever seen from your face, just peering into my soul, drilling into the back of my skull. But, I don't know, it's funny to differentiate between almost like you fall into your base instincts when you go onto the ice. There's no time for cordiality or formality of any kind. It's just it's either a win or a lose scenario. So when you get into that sort of thing, it becomes tough to. I wouldn't say tough to be friendly with someone, because the moment the game ends, you look at them, give them a fist bump, and then that's that. But in the moment, there's nothing more you want than to beat the guy in front of you, and that includes CMAC. And CMAC would say the same thing, because when he doesn't win, he's equally as mad as I am.
Yeah,
and it's not at the other guy, let me clarify,
right.
Of course. It's just the fact that you didn't perform up to the expectations you believe in yourself. And I think that raises both of our levels.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I'd almost be concerned. I don't know who I'm more concerned with when it comes to anger. Not that I think either one of you guys are angry or show any anger issues, but I'm trying to think to myself, the quiet guy who picks Genghis Khan as the guy he wants to be in the room with during a zombie apocalypse, or C-Mac, who literally thinks that having a job as a bouncer is okay, right? So at a bar. So because it does make you wonder there, but it's also about just staying competitive and having a balance in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, don't go asking questions, Bobby, you don't want the answers to.
No, I know. I get it. No, I do want the answer to those questions. I do find it fascinating. I think competition and drive and what happens inside of somebody when they win or lose, I think is important. And I think, there's not a position on hockey that needs mental therapy more than goaltending. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that to be mean. It's true. You guys get pucks throwing at you at 90 miles an hour. And you guys seem to have no problem taking them. But there's a win-loss factor to it. Like a center on a team isn't tagged with a win-loss or an overtime loss, and they're not tagged with 3.3 goals against average or a 980 save percentage. None of that stuff. We do that to goaltenders, right? So there is a real mental factor to the game, kind of like pitchers in baseball.
Oh, I think the closest analog to a goaltender is a pitcher in baseball, maybe a quarterback in football. But
sure.
These lone sports within a sport are their own sort of mental game, and I think all of us would agree, all the goaltenders, the pitchers, and the quarterbacks would say that we're definitely a different mental cut from the other players on our team.
But are you loving it? Do you kind of come to work every day and go, this is exactly where I want to be right now?
Oh, absolutely, undoubtedly. I mean, we, contrary to popular belief, or what some of the other guys I tell you, we are in fact paid for this. So it's a miracle in the sense that I get to walk into an arena every day and somebody tells me I get to live my life and play the game I grew up playing for fun or for a part of academics or any other variation of those two things, and hand you a little bit of cash for doing it. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who could ever complain about that lifestyle. So there's no reason to not be smiling every day, especially in the scenario we have, the former
Sure.
AHL building, the passionate fan base, the accommodations given to us by our ownership and coach. There's nothing worth complaining about, but that doesn't mean you can't not be angry when things aren't going exactly perfectly on the ice for you. But it takes a moment to appreciate.
Have you ever seen video of your parents watching you play hockey? It sounds like a weird question. It sounds like a weird question, but your parents have sat up next to me in the press box a couple times, and I've looked over and watched them kind of react to either a big save or let in a goal. I'll tell you right now, I don't think anybody goes through more agony watching their children play hockey than the parents. I mean, really what it comes down to is I think the parents, fans can be like so invested in a player, a team, that type of thing. But the parents, it's the agony that I see them go through, in like in a good way and a bad way, if you know what I'm saying. It's I don't know if a player truly knows what their parents go through watching them play hockey.
I don't think we could ever know until we have children of our own playing the game. But the mental agony that I could tell I'm putting them through, I don't know if I'd be able to do it to myself, making my kid play goaltender. I think there's a reason why you don't see very many second-generation NHL goaltenders. I think there's only been like a handful of them.
Marty Brodeur's son, right?
Yes, Jeremy and Anthony Brodeur. I feel, again, they're the exception to the rule. You just don't see too many of them, I feel like. You'll find far more forwards. Having children who will, again, like follow in their footsteps. I think just because there is a sense of, he could avoid any, maybe not blame, but
it's a tough position to play, right, Eggy? It really is the hardest position on the ice to play. Would you not agree?
From a biased point of view, I'd have to. Excuse me for the coughing.
Oh, don't worry about it.
A cold right now.
But it is the toughest position. Okay, so you guys have only lost 5 times this season. You guys are having a great first half of the season, but there's been injuries. There's been suspensions. There's been things that have kind of tripped you guys up. Tell me why you think that the 6 defensemen, there's been like 7 or 8 defensemen ahead of you goaltenders, have been so solid this year. And I think the team defense in a whole has been very good. Where there have been some games where you've bailed out the team in front of you, and they've bailed you guys out as well, you and CMAC. Talk about those 6 or 8 defensemen that have been in front of you guys and how well they've played this year.
Well, like you said, it's a team effort. Whether or not a guy is ready to be a first-pairing defenseman or the extra defenseman, like the 7th D-man or any other variation in the lineup where they're an extra front guy, I think there's a belief in each other that gives us a confidence that not a lot of other teams can say they have. There's the feeling that even if you make a mistake, there's a guy behind you, somewhere next to you, in front of you, who's going to either make up for it or have your back should it end up in the back of our net. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your time here. It's we do a very good job of picking each other up, and I think that translates onto the ice and onto our play.
Is that because of the people within the system, or is it because of the system itself that Brant Sherwood has kind of gotten you guys to buy into?
Not to discredit Coach and his coaching ability. He's very good at that. I think it does come down to the personalities involved, which does lead back to Coach Sherwood and his ability to recruit high-character players.
Sure.
I think that's the number one thing in making a roster work. If it gels together off the ice, then the on-ice will eventually fall into place.
Before we get to some fan questions, one of the things that you guys have been so good on this year is the penalty kill. It seemed to improve the last couple of years under Sherwood. It seems to improve a little bit here and there and everything. But shorthanded goals this year, you guys have 11 shorthanded goals. As a netminder, what are you seeing when the Black Bears go out and score a shorthanded goal? I say it's confidence within themselves to be able to know when to make the right decision, to make the move, to go for the shorty, right, is part of it. But what are you seeing as a netminder that is possibly the reason why you guys have already got 11 shorthanded goals this year?
I'm seeing Dakota Bond jumping the gun and picking a pass off and scoring on a breakaway more often than not, I feel like.
Yeah.
Besides that, though, I think it's a matter we do a good job at reading plays before they happen. I think there is a certain level of skill involved that we have access to, and not a lot of other teams do. That we have guys who could beat the play, beat the pass, and make the most of it more often than not. Even if they don't score on it, it ends up killing a solid chunk of the power play itself. It's tough as a goaltender to accept the fact that a good offense is a good defense, but I think we found a nice balance on our PK. I don't think we were very good to start the year, but once we got our feet under us, it really came together.
And that's with a lot of movement in the roster, right? Like, I know the defense has been pretty consistent this year, but the forwards have just been in and out, in and out, in and out. And, of course, the last couple of weeks, you guys haven't had your captain, Tyson Kirkby, as he's been up playing in the ECHL, and that's probably been interesting. So who's been the voice to speak up? Without Tyson in the locker room or on the ice speaking, who's been the player that's kind of like, and I don't mean the practice captain, Mr. Dan Weber. I don't mean him. But who has
Not
been...
Lieutenant Dan.
Not Lieutenant Dan. But who's been the guy that has really kind of stood up while Tyson has been away to kind of be the voice in the locker room and maybe also on the ice?
Not to give you a cop-out answer, but I do believe it's a committee effort. I think there is a maturity in the locker room that doesn't require a Captain Kirk to lead the enterprise, so to speak.
Thank you for the Star Trek reference. I love it.
I do enjoy Star Trek, so
me too.
You may hear that come up again at some point.
What's your favorite series?
Favorite theory?
Favorite series from Star Trek. Which Star Trek series is your favorite?
Oh, series.
Yeah.
I misheard you. Deep Space Nine.
Oh, me too. Okay, the best story writing, the best writing, just everything. Deep Space Nine had the best writing arc. The 3-episode arcs that they started in Deep Space Nine, absolutely the best.
I may be a bit sick of serialization in television shows these days, but I think it did it right, especially for a show in the 90s, to find the balance between episodic and a long season-long story. But
it was also the series that gave us a war amongst an enemy, right, with the Dominion War, and I thought that was one of the reasons why it was also so very, very, very well written. I
enjoy the philosophical side of Star Trek, and I thought it was an interesting take to see what happens when you take a post-scarcity, post-conflict society and put its values to the test. How long can it hold up? It made it a unique series, and a series that was already unique across all of its iterations.
So back to Captain Kirk. You were basically saying there's been a really kind of a committee of players that have kind of really been the voice since Tyson hasn't been around.
I would say if there was one individual I'd have to point to, it would definitely be Jesse Anderson-Ando. He is the assistant captain for a reason, and he does step into that role when needed. He's vocal, he's clear, and he's direct, and he's willing to step up for whatever he needs to do in that case when Kirks isn't around to do it.
Awesome. All right, let's get to some fan questions, okay? So some of these you're kind of familiar with question-wise, maybe some stuff that we've talked about in the past, but let's get some of these in. The first question comes from Kenneth Thrasher, and I absolutely love the Thrashers. They're great, not just because I love heavy metal and thrash metal, but literally it's a great name. And this is one that I'm pretty sure a lot of fans would love to know the answer to. All right, so you and C-Mac have a cool post-game ritual that he calls the jump and bump, okay? He'd like to know how you guys came up with it, and really how long have you guys been doing it?
So that was early on last season. We made that up. I me, C-Mac, and Sam all decided we wanted some sort of post-game celebration, and I actually stole, I think, I will take credit for it. I think I stole most of it from an old Rick DiPietro celebration from like 2007-ish, from an old... I love watching old hockey games just on hand, so I think I saw that and thought it was neat, and then put a slight variation on it. I think he had... I don't think the slaps were involved or anything, but the jump up with a shoulder bump was lifted directly from that. So it was not wholly original, but I think we put our own spin on it.
Yeah, and I've gotten a few good shots of you guys doing it, and it's a great little celebration. I'm glad you guys do it. Okay, my good friend Gary Ryan wrote, and he goes, even though Gary has a good idea of what answers you probably will give here, and I don't necessarily understand this, maybe you can explain this to me, but your top 3 desert island rock albums, in your opinion.
Ooh, excellent question. Hopefully I can give an equally excellent answer. I have to put The Wall on there.
Okay.
I'm going to be economical with this and try to pick double LPs to maximize the music I could have on hand on this proverbial desert island. So I'll pick The Wall.
Okay.
I guess the Beatles' White Album would have to go on there next.
Very good.
The third one would be tough, though. I think I would go with "Stop Making Sense" by the Talking Heads. I think that's
wow.
I think that's a perfect live double LP to take from.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great answers. Great question. All right. Kelly No Jam wants to know. She knows that you're a big music fan, okay? And I know part of this answer because you and I have talked about this before at the arena. Do you have any pregame or postgame music you listen to for mood inspiration? Now, if I remember correctly, I came to a game early. I believe you were playing that game, and I totally interrupted your pregame stuff. You had your ear pods in, and you told me that you listened to something very specific before games. Why don't you tell Kelly what that is?
So it's, I guess it's been a bit in flux over the past year and a half. So coming into the season for the past 3-4 years, I would have the same cassette mixtape I had made digitized onto my iPod or whatever music player I was using.
Can you explain to the young fans what a mixtape is? Because they're not going to know.
So back in the olden days, you'd buy a blank tape from a shop of some kind in person, not from Amazon, and you'd have a separate machine to steal music from, or as the record industry would hope, take from your own personal collection, songs to record onto, and then you have it physically on a tape with you, and you'd find a way to play it either portably or on the same machine you made it with.
Very good. Now, what is some of that music that you have on this mixtape?
So the tape would go. So I would have 2 versions of it. Side A would be the practice side, and that would be studio versions of the same song, and the B side would be for live music for game day. 'Cause the idea being, you'd have crowd noise with. For the game day anyway, so why not add crowd noise and energy to the music as well? So it would be Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner by Iron Maiden.
Awesome.
Which would go into Dogs performed by Roger Waters from Pink Floyd Live. Natural Science by Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Bravery of Being Out of Range, but also by Roger Waters. So it would finish with a medley of Roger Waters' performances. Be Bravery of Being Out of Range, Amused to Death, and then Brain Damage Eclipse.
Wow. Nice.
I wanted to make sure all the songs were as unradio friendly as possible, because I find that if I have a song that has a riff too memorable, it would get stuck in my head during games. So I found
that's
progressive rock would be a good antidote to that.
So that's a real thing? That sometimes something can get into your head while even though you guys are so mentally into games. Sometimes riffs or something like that musically can get into your brain while you're playing a game?
So that would be an issue before, like we mentioned earlier on, the challenge of not facing as many shots.
Sure.
I don't remember if we recorded this part or not, but the challenge of not facing that many shots during a game, you'd have a lull of 5 minutes or so. It's very tough to keep an earworm from budging its way into your...
Especially if you hear it in the arena, right? Like, if they play like a Bruce Springsteen song or something, getting the fans going, it is difficult, right, for you guys to still not hear that every once in a while, right?
Only if it's a song I'm very familiar with. Typically, I'm good at blocking out most noise during a game. So the only noise that tends to reverberate is are the ones echoing in my skull.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's very interesting. Kelly also wants to know, have you ever considered a career in broadcasting?
I would absolutely be interested in doing something with a microphone in front of me. I don't know what path I would need to take to go down that career choice, but it's certainly something I'd be interested. As you could tell, I like hearing my own voice.
Well, me too. So you and I really just need to start up a YouTube channel that really just breaks the mold of something, and music and hockey together. Boom, there it is. Right? We bring in guests on the music side and on the hockey side, and we discuss things with them. There it is. There it is. We just got to get like 100,000 people to subscribe to it.
You put a pin in that one, and I'll try to find as many thousand people as possible.
Fair enough. Okay. Kelly Howe would like to know. She says, this isn't really a fun or interesting question, but could you ask him...
Don't put yourself down.
No, I know. But could you ask him if he's ever thought of doing a goalie camp here locally? So her son, whose name is Connor, wants to be a goalie so bad because of CMAC and Eggy, but there's really no goalie development programs here. Now, I know over the years, some players have done camps on the ice at Division's Veterans Memorial Arena, and generally it's mostly forwards and defensemen that are doing that. Is that something that you and because we all know Connor has coached, and it's something he does in the off season a lot. And some of the guys have gone out to one of the camps that he's a big part of. Is that something that you and Connor have ever talked about, or is it supply and demand, so to speak?
So I've never talked about it with CMAC, but I do also coach during the summer on my own with either personally or with the help of one of my old goalie coaches supplying me with kids or young teenage goaltenders to work with. I'd certainly be interested in doing it in Binghamton. I just didn't know if anyone was interested or not. So if she'd like to contact me, I'd be more than willing to try and work something out.
Well, there you go, Kelly. If you want to come through me to get to Nolan, we can make that happen. And we'll see. I mean, because even if it's just 2 or 3 sessions where you just talk to him and kind of show him some basics. I've seen the kid on the ice. I mean, he can skate better than I can, so that's already a plus. Or at least skate better than I used to be able to. All right. So this one, the last name you may be familiar with this. Okay, Michelle Gavette Burchard, which there's somebody who works for the team with that same last name. She's like, I am so excited to ask Eggy a question. Aiden, the assistant equipment manager, will kill me, his favorite fan. How do you keep your curls so awesome under your helmet? She goes, I too have curls, but yours rock. Which I think So what she's wondering is what hair products and what hair treatment do you do to keep the curls so good? And Michelle, thank you for that question. I love it because I have had long hair many times. I have curls, nothing like Eggy's. So Eggy, all the girls with curls and bobs with curls want to know, how do you keep the hair so curly and nice?
Oh, a trade secret, Bobby. I couldn't possibly give up the secret to the magic like that.
What do you mean? What do you mean you can't tell the secret? You must be doing something, because I got to be honest with you. I got pictures of you, after a game, or during the game, and those curls just come out a little bit, and they look good, and the girls want to know what's going on there.
In all seriousness, it is really all natural. I'm not doing much with it. I may put a tiny bit of like a gel in it or something to try and get it a little bit more defined. But besides a regular just shampoo and conditioner, I'm not doing much to...
Nothing special. Nothing at all. I don't believe it. I call total BS on this one.
I'm sure my hairdresser at home would be appalled to hear me say such lies as these, but
okay.
I really don't have much to share or anything that would be helpful.
That's perfectly okay. All right, so Eric Pedley wants to know, and you can kind of keep this as broad as you want or as specific as you want, but Eric Pedley knows, and he may not have listened the other times that you've been on the show. He wants to know, what music do you jam out to? We all know Pink Floyd. I believe Rush is another one that's high on your thing. I know you jam out to Iron Maiden a little bit, but let's put it this way. Who do you listen to the most? Pink Floyd, we know, but who else in that category? But also, you play bass, so who else do you jam out to?
I have been on a absolutely huge Beatles kick for the past 6 months now.
Really?
I didn't really get it for the longest time, but whatever clicked in my mind, and I've just been absolutely fascinated by them for the past few months now, especially their later era. And I really appreciate even their early stuff as well.
It's too poppy for me. The early stuff is too poppy. The later stuff, when they started experimenting, it's like the Beach Boys, right? Very beachy, and then it gets more psychedelic, as they get later. And when
Brian Wilson really, begins to flex his musical muscles.
Oh, yeah. Well, you mean get more stoned.
Well,
hey.
You could say the same about the Beatles, I suppose.
Yes, you definitely could. And Stone Cold Crazy and things of like that nature in the later years really kind of showed that they were really good musicians and songwriters too.
I think that's the absolute most impressive thing about them. Someone put into context just how rapid their evolution was as a group. If they had been on the Ed Sullivan Show in 2020, right as COVID began, they'd be beginning work on Abbey Road right now. I mean, the gap of just music and how quickly it happened was simply incredible. I mean, they were writing the rules of rock and roll and then breaking them on their own within a span of, under just barely over half a decade.
It's funny too. It's funny too, Eggy, because I think if we didn't have the Beatles, and I never really thought about this when I was literally playing music as much as I did, like when I did it every day for 3 or 4 hours a day. And playing my guitar that much and playing in bands, I never really thought about it this way. But later on in life, I realized without the Beatles, we wouldn't have had the Doors. Without the Beatles, we wouldn't have had Led Zeppelin. Without the Beatles, there was a reason why we had a lot of these bands. And it started with the Beatles, because even though rock and roll was different in the 50s and the early 60s, it bloomed into what we got later on from probably 69 all the way through the early 90s. It's crazy how all of that developed, because you can find one spot, the Beatles, and even before that in the 50s, maybe Rock Around the Clock and stuff like that, which seemed so crazy at the time to be able to hear that or see that on television. But then the Beatles just took that to the supernova next level.
I think what the Beatles really pioneered more than anything else was the fact that they learned how to make the studio into an instrument in itself. I don't think we'd have the same sort of production that we consider maybe not even commonplace today, just as the music landscape has moved beyond stringed instruments as its primary weapon in its arsenal. But still, you could even track back production methods that still exist today back to what they were experimenting with 4-track tape machines and studio overdubs that just weren't being done by anyone else. It's something to be said for being you listen to their stuff around the Revolver era, and they were just well, that was a cool guitar solo. I wonder what it sounds like played backwards on the tape and recorded again. It's who was thinking of that back then?
No. One of the greatest thing. I love documentaries about music. I don't know how much you watch documentaries of music, but one of the ones I watched most recently was about a film, like a concert up in Toronto that they were trying to put on. They were having a hard time getting people to, buy into it, getting some of the big names. And so one of the guys who was running it called up John Lennon and said, "Hey, listen, we really want you to come out to this festival." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'll do that." Now, that was like a week before the festival was supposed to happen. They didn't hear from him at all after that. They kept going on the radio and saying, "Hey, we're going to have John Lennon here. It's going to be great, blah, 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 blah." And everyone's like, "Yeah, sure you are. And literally, he shows up that morning, no notification at all. Just basically, he shows up. And the festival was a huge hit, only because they sold like thousands of tickets from like 7 o'clock in the morning until the festival started at like 1 in the afternoon. That was the power of the Beatles and John Lennon.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing to be said for, there is something to be said, for the power that each of these four guys were able to command, especially McCartney and Lennon as a combination. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy George Harrison as well, but he didn't get to flourish until he got to become a solo artist, really. Mm-hmm. And Ringo's Ringo. Everyone enjoys Ringo.
Well, Ringo's fun. And but George wrote some of the best songs. I mean, he wrote some of the best songs people don't realize. And when he wrote a guitar solo, which they didn't have many, right, with the Beatles, right? But when they did, he was so just efficient with the way he wrote the solos, and he didn't have to put in a ton of notes to have a very big impact, and that is like his impact on music, which is great.
There's very few bands that could say they had the chemistry that the Fab Four did. Mm-hmm. I mean, for each one of them, as talented as they were, like even at the lowest end of the spectrum, if you say Ringo was quote unquote the least creative or worst of the Beatles, that's still a guy who has many records on his own by himself, innovated a drumming style that was so perfect to the band he was in, was never overzealous or wasn't up to the task. It was, each one of them was a special musician in their own right, and to get to see them work together, like in hindsight, is incredible, even for as short and brief it was. I think that almost adds to the magic in the fact that there was such a brief eclipse of such four incredible musical minds.
Yeah, there was an active lifespan, yet they've never really gone away. And that's the crazy thing about them. And to go back to Ringo, the guy plays drums the right way. And what people don't realize, go watch Ringo play drums. The way he holds his drumsticks, he plays like a drummer should play, unlike what we see in modern day drumming, where a lot of people don't hold the sticks the right way. I'm just saying, I will give him props on that. He does play drums the right way. So
we'll keep an eye out for that personally. I'm planning on seeing him this summer.
Really?
He's going back on tour.
Oh, phenomenal. That's great. Okay, we have one last fan question, okay? It's from Ashley Irons, and she actually has 3 little questions here, so we'll kind of do them rapid fire. She wants to know, the first one is, what player would you have cook a meal for the team? So who's the best cook on the team?
What an interesting question, and one I don't know if I'm prepared to answer. I don't know who's a particular Guy Fieri or Gordon Ramsay of this team. I feel like I only trust myself to cook my own meals, and
that's fair. That's fair. Would you cook for the team, though? And what would you cook?
It requires that much skill, but I am fairly okay with making a crock pot meal, so I could make a serviceable stew for the group.
Nice. Okay, all right. Her second question is, if you weren't in hockey, where would you see yourself right now?
I don't know. I've always liked to believe I have a flair for the dramatic. I think I would have become a theater kid of some kind or a band kid during high school or middle school had I not had my athletic pursuits to default to. But I'm not sure where that would have led. One way or another, I would have found a way to avoid getting an office job. So probably a starving actor of some kind.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, listen, you got the hair to be on TV. You got the hair just in general to do whatever the hell you want. That's the funny thing. I think there's probably, like people would be like, you'd come in for an interview and they'd be like, well, we don't have a guy with hair like that. We got to hire him. Yeah, it's like in the rule book.
At the very least, I'd have a lucrative gig playing Mall Jesus during Christmas season.
That's funny.
Not to stumble onto John Lennon's mistake of saying he was bigger than Jesus, but
yeah, fair enough.
I'd like to admit I could, at the very least, portray him in a sort of face way.
Her last one is, what are some of your hobbies? Why don't you just give everybody at least one hobby that you do that's not music and not hockey related?
Well, go and strip me of all my personality, why don't you?
I'm pretty good at that. I mean, come on.
I enjoy movies very much. I pay for that AMC subscription. You see 3 movies every week for not free, I guess severely discounted. It's like $20 or something a month. Then you see 3 movies every week. So I try to see everything in theaters. I guess you could call me an amateur film critic. I'm not. I do enjoying films, but sometimes there are some I can't even say I really had a good time being at. I'm going to go on my soapbox for one of them recently. I really did not enjoy the Bob Dylan movie that just came out.
Really? Whoa! I haven't seen it yet. Why? What didn't you like about the Bob Dylan movie? Because I love movies about like these superstar musicians or groups. Like the Queen movie was great. So what? Okay.
Oh no! I can't agree with you on that.
Oh, you didn't like the Queen movie? Well, okay. Well, it was all about Freddie Mercury, which pissed me off. But otherwise, I thought it was okay.
So my issue with the Bob Dylan movie, I'll stay on that topic for this one.
Yeah.
Was if you've ever seen Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, the John C. Reilly parody of all the biopics of musicians, it felt like I was watching that, but played straight. It was.
Really?
It just felt like it tried to hit every single cliche of a music personality movie, where it's like, oh, hello, famous other musician. I'm a famous musician. Have you thought of this song title for this? Or
fair enough.
All of it just seems so very
that's fair.
So very contrived. And I think I said, "Oh, you got to be kidding me," 5 separate times during the movie.
Let me ask you this question. So, give us one film that you've seen recently that you say, yes, absolutely, everyone should go see.
Honestly, on the polar opposite of the musical biopic spectrum, the one on the British pop star Robbie Williams, but he's played by a CGI monkey. As odd as that sounds, it worked.
It really
very much worked. It was. It's bombing at the box office. Nobody's watching it because nobody knows who he is. But I thought it took an interesting spin on the idea he plays like. His character, like himself, is played as a literal man monkey, but it's the point that he's feels he's a trained animal on stage for everyone's amusement. I think the metaphor worked very well, and it was creative in a sense that we had a new idea in a genre that's been, I think, pretty stagnant over the past 30 years since. Martin Scorsese did the Doors movie.
The Doors movie was great. I love that.
Again, it was the movie I think that set the standard for all the films going forward, but I don't think many of them have done much going forward with it. But
this movie,
another case of a biopic that did that extremely well was the Michael Fassbender Steve Jobs movie.
Yes.
The dialogue was fantastic.
Yes, it was. Eggy, thank you so much for coming on and taking your time out and doing this with us. It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you, to learn more about you, to get the mind going, get your mind going, because I know in some cases you're kind of a quiet, shy kind of guy unless you're in an element that you're very comfortable with. And whatnot. So I'm always appreciative that you'll come on and feel comfortable talking with me and just kind of opening up like this. Well,
it's easy to talk to you, Bobby. You do your best at getting this this guy out of his shell, at the very least enough to pretend like he has a personality. So thank you.
You do. No, you absolutely do. He is Nolan Egbert, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was Nolan Egbert. Just a programming note, he'll also be on our Sunday podcast with 6 more questions with Nolan Egbert. And, of course, we made him answer again, number 6, a zombie apocalypse has broken out, and you are trapped in a hockey arena. Who would you have in there with you? And, his first guess was, last year was Genghis Khan, and he had a new pick. So you guys will have to listen to that this upcoming Sunday as we bring you the weekend wrap-up show right here on the Power Play Post Show. We'll talk about the upcoming 2 games against the Columbus River Dragons. I think everybody from Eggy, who we talked about it with him, to even Brant Sherwood, who I've had a couple text messages with recently, very excited about these games with the Columbus River Dragons. So with that being said, the Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for Power Play Post Show, and check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. Thank you to Rob Lapolis, our MC, John Petitucci, our musical director, and as well from the Binghamton Black Bears netminder, our good friend Nolan Egbert. We'll talk to you next time after the Columbus River Dragons games. I am Bob Howard. Thank you very much for listening, and you've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.